Kia ora, and welcome to another podcast from me, John Winter's Supermarket Sleuth, calling you from New Zealand. Now, what are we starting off talking about today? I'm talking about what will be the impact of COVID-19 further down the line. While we know the immediate impact of COVID-19 in our own countries, what we don't know and can't anticipate is the impact further down the line. What do I mean by this? Immediate impacts are shortages of various kinds of foods and beverages due to the local impact of self-isolation. But self-isolation applies to the whole world, and that means ingredients imported for use in products made in your country may dry up. Dried fruit, cocoa and coffee beans, tea, sugar, the list goes on. The virus is still in its early stages in some countries, even reappearing in places like China where it first began. This has affected those who gather these kinds of foods and ingredients, so it may be a long time before we return to norm, and may mean some of our favourite foods and beverages like coffee, chocolate, dried fruit, cakes and so on may be in short supply for months to come. So we're not out of the woods yet, and may well have to wait a while before we can enjoy some of these favourite indulgences. It will also explain why some of the products we usually see on shelf aren't there. If you add changing seasons to the pot as well as that, then supplies become even more complicated. Never have we seen a situation in our food and beverage industries so complex as the one we're experiencing now. It's okay for ingredients we source from our own countries and may even lead to some short-term export opportunities for growers. But the downside of that is the more they can export at a better price, the higher the prices rise domestically. A good example of that is meat. When China was in lockdown, the meat exports from New Zealand all but dried up, as China is one of our major exporting destinations. So meat prices in our supermarkets fell. But now China is opening up for business again, then our domestic meat prices have started to creep up. We've also seen a change in our delis in New Zealand. Where we could buy fresh fish over the counter before lockdown, now that's mostly gone. Why? Not for the lack of fish in a country surrounded by seas, but for hygiene concerns. The fish is still available, but now pre-packed for safety's sake. And we have to admit that's a good thing. That also brings me to another topic. Before COVID-19 arrived, one of our focuses was on plastic and getting rid of it. But the situation's changed. Plastic protects and is the best and easiest method to protect food. So the push to get rid of it has gone, for now. We need it for self-protection, and so if anything it's even more in use than it was before, hence my mentioning the fresh fish. So I'm afraid we're stuck with it for as long as there's any concern for the spread of the virus. It's sad as it kills so much wildlife, but when push comes to shove, self-protection comes before protecting our wildlife. Hopefully, when the day comes that this is all over, the focus can return to ridding us of that awful plastic. But we shouldn't be complacent and jump on the get rid of plastic bandwagon as soon as it's appropriate. There is a good need for it. If only they could discover a plastic that is combustible, then we would solve the problem and we'd get rid of it through the waste system. Another change that COVID-19 has brought on is online shopping. Many supermarkets are already doing this, and others have very quickly followed. Other retailers who never considered going online as its in-store shopping fitted their shops best have now also moved into this. Will they continue once life returns to some sort of normality, or will they choose to keep that new side of the business too? Well, time will tell. And even more to the point, will customers choose to stay with online shopping having got into it? Some people were already doing most of their shopping online as it suited their lifestyle, juggling work and home. My eldest daughter in the UK and her husband are frequent online shoppers, and so going online for them during COVID-19 has just been more of the norm, and they're quite used to it. But others like me like to choose what we buy by going into supermarkets and shops, and the delivery costs only make what I buy that much more expensive. Then there's the delivery hassles of being out when the order arrives and having to go and fetch it or have it re-delivered, or you can choose to pick it up from the store, but that can also be a hassle too. So I'm one of those who like to do it the personal way rather than having it delivered. Yes, it will be interesting to see the impact normality has online, if we ever get back to the normality we used to have. Certainly in this country, and no doubt in Australia and the UK, the courier companies have been rushed off their feet. So not only will we find, when this is all over, that the supermarkets have made a bomb out of lockdown, but I'm sure the courier and delivery countries will too, and probably new delivery companies have sprung up. So let's have a look at what's been happening over the last 7 days. Not only have the supermarkets and delivery companies been making big profits out of the virus lockdown situations, but suppliers have too, like GSK in the pharmaceuticals field and Reckitt Benckiser, whose products include disinfectants and cleaning materials. There will always be winners and losers, probably with companies manufacturing disinfectants, personal care and general cleaning products. Their wins are going to continue for some time. The 3-week lockdown extension in the UK has, it seems, caused people to return to stockpiling. Toilet paper, kitchen roll and face tissues are straight back on the shopping list, with tinned pasta, rice and dry pasta going out of store during the week. This was most noticeable in Tesco. It was particularly noticeable within dry pasta. Ocado had supply problems with frozen foods. Now, we don't want to return to those nightmare early days of lockdown which created havoc for supermarkets and shoppers alike. Hopefully the supermarkets are placing limits on these kinds of products to make sure there's enough for everyone. This "I'm alright Jack" attitude that some people adopt doesn't help. Grab, grab, grab exacerbates shortages and anxiety when there's absolutely no need. But when shoppers see others grabbing armfuls of product, then, through fear, they follow suit. It's up to the supermarkets to control the selfish in the interests of sanity for their businesses and for their customers. Now we'll turn to prices. Yes, that's something we're all worried about too. With many supermarkets ditching promotions to give us an opportunity to get a few bargains in our basket, it's becoming even harder. UK trade magazine The Grocer has provided some evidence. New data shows the cost of a basket of everyday groceries has headed north in recent weeks. The Grocer's weekly data shows the price of 33 chosen goods was £3.02 higher, that's plus 4.3%, as Asda on 17th of April compared to a month ago. Shoppers at Morrison's were now paying £7.03, which is up 9.6% more, while the cost at Waitrose increased by £4.14, which was up 4.8%. Products seeing the biggest increase included instant coffee and laundry detergent. So we are paying more. Supermarkets will argue that their costs have risen during lockdown by having to employ more staff. I bet they added a little more on the top too. They'll all watch each other, sending in spies in the guise of shoppers to see what their competitors are up to. So let's look at the upside. Upside? What can that be? The United Nations Food Agency reports global food commodity prices declined for the third month in a row during April, as the economic and logistical impacts of the coronavirus pandemic resulted in significant falls in demand. The FAQ sugar price index hit a 13-year low, falling 14.6% from March, when there was an even larger monthly drop. Collapsing international crude oil prices cut demand for sugarcane to produce ethanol, diverting output to producing sugar. The vegetable oil price index fell 5.2% in April, driven lower by falling palm, soy and rapeseed oil values. A fall in biofuel demand was a factor, as well as falling demand from the food sector, along with higher than previously expected palm oil output in Malaysia and soy crushings in the US. The dairy price index fell by 3.6%, with butter and milk powder prices having double-digit drops amid increased export availability, mounting inventories, weak import demand and a huge fall in restaurant sales in the Northern Hemisphere. The meat price index fell by 2.7%. A partial recovery in import demand from China wasn't enough to balance the slump in imports elsewhere, while major producing countries suffered logistical bottlenecks and a steep fall in demand from the hospitality industry and takeaways, which we're all aware of. Excuse me. But then after the good news comes the not so good or bad news. The FAO cereal price index fell only slightly as international prices of wheat and rice rose significantly, while those of maize dropped sharply. International rice prices rose by 7.2% from March, due primarily to temporary export restrictions via Vietnam that they eventually cancelled, while wheat export quotes from the Russian Federation rose. Prices of coarse grains, including maize, by contrast fell by 10%, apparently driven down by falling demand for the use for both animal feed and biofuel production. So you see, as usual, some things cost more and others less. Do they balance out? Well, it depends what you buy, really, and whether you can switch from those involving raw materials going up to others that are falling. So, we're back to swings and roundabouts. The fresh produce industry through PMA ANZ, which covers both Australia and New Zealand, is complaining that shoppers are being misled on social media and in other places by warnings about buying fresh produce from supermarkets. It's backing the message from the WHO, World Health Organization, that fresh produce is safe and eating fruit and vegetables is encouraged during this time. Of course, fruit and vegetables are good for you and should be encouraged. They're also saying that food authorities globally are saying that food isn't a vehicle for transmitting the virus. So does that give you complete confidence that you can pick up that apple at home you've just bought from the supermarket, give it a quick rinse under the cold tap and enjoy? I'm not so confident at all. For the sake of being extra careful by washing the apple in detergent and warm water for 30 seconds and then a rinse in cold water afterwards, it's a no-brainer. As long as we're eating fruit and vegetables and taking care to wash the loose ones, like I've said, what's the problem? We're advised to follow good hygiene procedures and even told to wipe packages and bottles with a disinfectant wipe before putting them in the cupboard. So surely to take simple precautions with fresh produce is complying with what we've been advised? What are these people afraid of? That we're going to say we can't be bothered and stop buying fresh produce? If we can't be bothered to wipe our bottles, if we can be bothered to wipe our bottles and beverages before putting them away, we can certainly adopt the simple precaution to make sure our produce is safe. The big problem is this COVID-19 situation is mixed messages. As fast as one group says one thing, another says something else totally contradictory. I suggest you err on the side of caution. Better safe than sorry in my book. Now, we'll finish with a short snippet from New Zealand. New World in Auckland's Albany, which is a supermarket, now has a new fleet of bright red trolleys made from recycled milk bottles. They have a steel frame married to a plastic basket made using the recycled plastic. By using half the amount of steel compared to standard trolleys, the new hybrids are 30% lighter, making them easier to push for customers and staff, and that's going to be a big help for many people. There are two sizes, the mid-size and large. The mid-size trolleys are made using 66 recycled milk bottles, while the larger ones use 154 bottles. And these are made in Melbourne, Australia, so I guess they'll probably be appearing in Australia soon if they haven't already. They're durable and rust-proof, which is a great thing. I hate putting food into rusty old trolleys. I have to put my purchases in. Now, while we're on the subject of trolleys, I saw one good idea in many supermarket car parks when I visited the UK last July. The trolley parks were housed in plastic covers, which was they were tall enough to actually walk into, because sometimes you've got to put the trolley further in, or I just flick it in and let it sail down there on its own. And the trolley parks were housed in plastic covers, so trolleys were always dry when you collected them on the way into the store, and obviously it reduces rust, and that's a big plus. So what with plastic trolleys coming along now on a steel frame and these covers, I just wish that in New Zealand, I don't know about Australia, I can't remember now since it's a while that I've been to an Australian supermarket, whether in fact they have them, but they're such a good idea. They will certainly extend the life of the trolleys, and that's got to be good, because an average trolley in New Zealand is about, the big ones are something like $400, which is £200, and the smaller ones probably about $150. So when you think a store's probably got 100, 200 of these, that's a big outlay. So if they can save the cost or extend the life of the trolleys by actually having these plastic ones, or having covers in the supermarket so they don't get so rusty or last longer before rusting, that's got to be a good thing. So supermarket owners, please think about that one, because I think that's a good move, and well done the UK. Right, well, that's it for this week for my podcast. You can catch me on magic.co.nz on a Saturday morning New Zealand time at 10:45 in Weekend Life, when I do my live broadcast, or you can wait, and that normally goes up on my Facebook page, which is Supermarket Sleuth Magic Talk Auckland. You can catch it there, and I put it up soon after it's been on air. So make whatever you like. And if you want to send me any complaints about supermarkets, any questions about supermarkets, please do so on my Facebook page, because I will more than willingly answer them in my podcast, or answer you direct if that's what you prefer. But it helps to get feedback from shoppers, because that makes my little bits and pieces a little more interesting, I think, for all of you. So in the meantime, have a good week. We have gone to level 2 today in New Zealand, which means all the shops, most of the shops are now open, and that's a good thing for people who've been buying online. They can now go in store and see the things for themselves. Supermarkets, obviously no change there. We're still asked to do safe distancing, so 2 meters between each other, and the schools go back on Monday. We've only got the kindergartens going at the moment, and the schools for children of essential workers, but Monday it's schools back. Today the companies who have been in lockdown, people have been in lockdown from companies that are not essential, they've gone back to work, so we're now seeing much more traffic on the roads, and people being warned about their driving, because a lot of people haven't driven on the roads for 6 or 7 weeks. They've been indoors, and someone else has been doing their shopping for them, or they've been having it delivered. So people are being warned to take care when they're driving for the first time for that sort of length of time. So all of you, take care, be safe, and catch me again next week. Bye for now.